Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got another show for you today. There's just a lot of news out there. All right. Yeah, Jim Harbaugh has officially been suspended, and we're going to talk about that. And Paul Feinbaum is not happy. He ripped the NCAA, and this thing's been boiling over for a lot of weeks. Several months, actually. And this goes all the way back to the virus and all that, when they had all those COVID rules and all that stuff. So the NCAA was not happy with Jim Harbaugh and the way he handled some things, and we're going to get into that. And we'll start out with ESPN's story here. Michigan went ahead and self-imposed a 3-game ban for Harbaugh and its violations during that COVID-19 dead period. It says, while the NCAA continues on the matter, today's announcement is our way of addressing mistakes that our department has agreed to in an attempt to further that process. It says, we'll continue to work with blah, 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 blah. Harbaugh said, I will continue to do what I always tell our player, blah, 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 blah. And the reason they're doing this is they're going ahead and self-imposing it because they can't get a deal with the NCAA, and they know one's coming down. They're going to come down with a decision at some point. But what they've decided to do is just push it all the way to the end of the year, is what it appears, and go ahead and do a 3-game suspension, because they were trying to negotiate a 4-game suspension, but the NCAA wants 5. And so there's a lot of frustration over that. And that had to do with this department right here, the Committee on Infractions. And so in trying to get a deal with the Committee on Infractions, that's where there's been this impasse. So, you know, in Harbaugh, look, a lot of this has to do with him just being frustrated and doesn't like being questioned over what he thinks is silly nonsense. You know, over basically he bought some hamburgers at a place called the Brown Derby, which is kind of a big deal in Michigan, I think. And so rather than cooperating with them and doing all that, he just kind of, you know, gave him the stiff arm. And also realized at the time he was probably thinking, I'm going to the NFL anyway. And, you know, Harbaugh is an excellent coach, by the way. He's a very good coach, but he can be difficult at times and hard to deal with because he has a bit of an ego. I know you're shocked to hear that, but a lot of these big-time coaches have a bit of an ego. And he was a quarterback on top of it.
Oh, well, there's strikes 2 and 3 right there.
And Pete Thamel said that Michigan's decision is indicative of the severity of the eventual potential ruling against Harbaugh. It's a move that shows the school's trying to essentially curry favor for good behavior, etc. And I think a big part of it has to do with the fact the first 3 games are cupcakes. The 4th game really is too, but Rutgers sometimes gives him a little bit of trouble. So they're like, well, you know, let's just go ahead and do the 3-game. And then if they get to the end of the year and they suspend him the first 2 games of next year, you know, maybe that won't be as big a deal, or maybe they'll just get 1. But I'm thinking, don't they play Texas next year in one of those first 2 games? So that's a game you'd probably want Harbaugh there. Let me double check that schedule. Yeah, they play Fresno State in the first game, which that would obviously be the 4th game, no problem. But then they play Texas, and that's a tough ball game right there. That's an SEC team in 2024, which makes them even tougher. And the NCAA got all hot under the collar over some things, and what they're angry about is this pushback on that it was over a hamburger. It says the NCAA had pushed back on one of the media narratives that had emerged from the case, which was that it revolved around paying for a cheeseburger.
Where's the beef? Where's the beef?
The reality, self-imposed penalties show there is likely more to the case. The NCAA took the unusual step of issuing a statement about an ongoing investigation earlier this month when it outlined specifics of the Michigan situation. It says the Michigan infractions cases related to impermissible on- and off-campus recruiting during the COVID dead period and impermissible coaching activities. Not a cheeseburger, Derek Crawford of the NCAA said. Don't say it's a cheeseburger. That makes us mad. Yeah. It's a cheeseburger. That's what it's over.
Where's the beef?
It's over a couple of cheeseburgers he bought for a recruit or 2 at the Brown Derby or the whatever it's called. Now, I have no idea where this media narrative came from. Certainly, it had nothing to do with Sports Talk Jay. I would never, ever do anything along those lines during this time. I always take it very seriously, and I can't even imagine. It just, who knows? But then our boy Paul Feinbaum chimed in. And he ripped the NCAA's handling of the investigation. It says Harbaugh was supposed to be suspended 4 games by the NCAA, but later decided the decision would come down the line. Michigan was not happy about that, and that's why they went to the 3-game like we discussed. And Paul Feinbaum is still not happy with how the NCAA has handled this situation. He made those feelings clear on SportsCenter. He said Michigan made the right decision to go ahead and push this forward. He said this should have already been adjudicated by now, but the NCAA, being their clueless nature that we always see from them, decided not to accept a 4-game penalty. So Michigan went ahead and said, okay, we'll keep them out 3 and you can figure it out at the end of the year. So yeah, here's the games. East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green. Whoopity-doo. And they're going to have an interim head coach for 3 games and all that. And I think this has to do with the fact they did like a 5-game suspension of Trammell, who was the Ohio State coach, as I recall, if you'll remember Trammell. And I think he wound up getting fired. He didn't even do the 5 games. Something about not being honest with the NCAA. That really gets them going. It's usually not the impermissible whatever that's the big deal. If these coaches would just go ahead and say, yeah, I bought the guys hamburgers at the Brown Derby or whatever during this, I guess it was a dead period. I didn't know. Sorry about that. And NCAA would have walked over there and slapped him on the hand.
Now return to your seat.
Well, the problem is, he said, oh, I don't remember. And they're going, well, we know. It seems like there was some receipts or something they showed him, and then he still didn't remember. And they're like, okay, now you're really making us mad. So a lot of this has to do with pride and hubris, if you can imagine, probably on both sides at this point. Because once the NCAA feels lied to, they get their dander up. And yes, they do have dander, and it gets up. I don't even know what dander is, but anyway, you know what I'm saying. So this is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. I guess what they'll do, and Michigan, I think, did the right thing. Just go ahead, suspend him for the 3 games, push it to the end of the year, let him go ahead and suspend him for 1 or 2 more games next year. He may be gone anyway. He wants to go to the NFL, but he wants total control. He wants to basically be the GM and the head coach, and none of these owners want to do that because realize a lot of these owners, they think they're NFL guys. Because they got a ton of money and they're surrounded by yes men, and they make stupid decisions like hiring the assistant coach from the New England Patriots, who are terrible, and you wind up having a terrible year, and then he makes terrible decisions, and it's just been a mess. So, that's just what the owners do. That's what NFL owners do. They don't have a clue, but they got a bunch of money, and so they think they should be making a lot of decisions, and the general manager certainly doesn't want the coach making a decision like that. So Harbaugh is between a rock and a hard place. So he just stays in college where he can do all the recruiting, getting the guys he wants, and be the head coach and be the big dog all around campus.
Oh, right. The big man on campus. Come on.
So anyway, that's what's going on with Harbaugh, suspended for 3 games over a couple of cheeseburgers. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's me know to continue to cover the Vols and all the other stuff that's going on. I usually cover the Vols, the SEC, but this Harbaugh thing is interesting to me. And if you're not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just hit that little button. I would appreciate it. And right over here is the most recent video. And YouTube thinks you'll love it based on your viewing history. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.